Hey guys, Spray and Pray here, and welcome back to Victoria 2. Today we're going to be doing a very quick breakdown of population and how it pertains to the industry in Victoria 2. Now, this is going to be a few parts of a series where I'm going to try to explain industry as a whole in the Victoria 2 game, because it can be a very confusing topic and it's hard to know, what to do, and there's a couple pitfalls that you can fall into. So I'm going to be splitting it up into a couple different videos just to simplify it and give you a rundown on the individual topics before we have one, conglomeratory video on industrialization and making factories and stuff like that, because there are some facets that you need to understand about the game before we get into industrialization and factories and stuff as a whole, because if you don't understand these building blocks, then you'll have trouble with the major concepts later on. So the first video, which is the one you're in right now, is going to be about population. Population is very key when you're trying to do factories because, obviously you need people to work in your factories, and if you don't have enough craftsmen and you have all these factories, you're not going to be having a good time because your factories aren't going to have anybody working in them. Now, I've loaded up my game where we were playing with T-Dog and he was playing as Germany. I was playing as Great Britain, and Great Britain is a perfect example because they have such a plethora of, they're a world power, so they have pretty much every situation you can kind of experience by looking at Great Britain. So we're going to open up the factory screen here, and I'm just going to show you, you can see that almost none of my factories are fully populated. And that's the Great Britain. We have 200 million population and we can't fill all of our factories. That's really weird. I mean, obviously there are some that are filled, but I'm just saying you're gonna have issues, and if you can't fill your factories, then they are going to be useless, and they probably will be causing you to actually waste money just paying for them to sit there and do nothing. Now, let's go ahead and learn about, we're going to go now shift more towards population specifically and what that means and what it means in relation with factories. So on your population screen here, you might be seeing this number here. It's 200 million. That's not very many people. I don't think that my total population is 250 million or 212 million. It's actually, my total population is 800 million. However, this number that they have up there is talking about the adult male population, because unfortunately, for women and children and, old people, it was mostly the adult male demographic that was the voting demographic. So about 25% of the population is how they represent that here. So these 200 million people, sorry women, are the people that we actually care about because they're men and they vote and they work, and women and children and stuff like that don't really do that. I mean, I know there's child labor and women work, but as far as the majority out there, it's mostly men. So, this is obviously, a little chauvinist, but still, that is how the game chooses to represent your population. And this is the one that you care about. So you want to see, what are your men doing? Your men are probably, especially at the start of the game, going to be mostly farmers or laborers, especially with a country that's sort of industrial or already Germany, where they have a lot of mines and that sort of thing. They're going to be laborers. That's where they work. And the farmers, of course, farm. So, farms, that's where you'll find them. So that's going to be the bulk of your population at the beginning of the game, as well as artisans. Artisans are a very key part of the beginning of the game and can make you a lot of money early on, as opposed to factories, because at the beginning of the game, factories kind of suck, and artisans are the answer to factories and what was happening before factories became popular. They basically produce manufactured goods by themselves alone. So it's a dude in his house and he's making shoes and shit. So those are very good. And they're actually way more efficient early game than the factories are. So one of the early pitfalls that you can fall into as a, burgeoning nation in Victoria 2 is trying to industrialize too fast. If you throw up all these factories, and even if you do manage to get people working there, they may get outshone by your artisans, and you might not be able to sell any of your goods because everybody's subsisting fine on just the artisans. So at the beginning of the game, while it would be nice to have a ginormous industry because it gets you more score, it's not really a thing that you can achieve, because at the beginning of the game the world economy can't even like support buying your goods in the first place, so there's no really reason for you to make those factories at all. So the thing is, with factories, you kind of really just want to take your time, and there's no rush at all, because like I said, your artisans are just doing great. They are more efficient and you should let them work. And it's not till later, once you unlock some technologies, that your factories actually become efficient enough to defeat the artisans, and then, you know, they all die. Of course, you see my population right now, it's only 4% artisans. That's very low. And I don't even know what they're doing. They're probably, you know, I guess maybe they're making tanks or something. Don't know. Maybe they're filling a niche my factories aren't, but there's not very many of them. So I'm pretty sure they are actually the least popular thing. Where are those guys? They look kind of funny, so it's hard to figure. Yeah, there they are. They actually have 8 million, so the least are definitely not them. Okay, that's cool. Yep, and obviously it's a little bit skewed here, because I mean 5% of 2 million is, or 200 million is still a lot. But anyways, the craftsmen are pretty much the bread and butter of your industrial, you know, factory population. So if those guys aren't happy, then you're going to be in trouble. And the way that you want to do to increase the population of craftsmen is to basically make being the other jobs kind of shitty. So the other jobs that craftsmen can be are like soldiers, stuff like that. So if you have room and you want to try to encourage craftsmen to join, you can use your national focuses, and you can also like pay soldiers less. They don't like that. And your force limit will decrease as a result as well, which may or may not be desirable, because, you know, that would suck if you had less force limit. But, you know, being a craftsman is kind of nice if you want to go for that industrial score. So going to the budget tab here and like lowering the military spending is a way to encourage people to go and be craftsmen as opposed to being the soldiers, because they're not getting paid really much being soldiers. So they will change more than that. So basically that's pretty much the rundown in how population reflects onto your industrial stuff. TLDR, you want to have craftsmen. You need those guys to fill your factories. In addition to craftsmen, once your country, I believe, gets over 50% literacy, you can now start doing clerks, which are like helpers for craftsmen. And the ratio, you want to have like, I think it's 10% clerks. So you want to have, for every 100 clerks or 100 craftsmen, you want to have 10 clerks, because that makes your factories more efficient. And I'm pretty sure if we hover over this, there should be like a breakdown somewhere. I don't know. I mean, it's a little bit difficult to see, because a lot of the times, and what makes the industry so hard in this game is that the tooltips aren't that great. So, I mean, you can really like be like, I don't know what the hell this does. So, as far as clerks, you want to have a percentage of them, and they also give you resource points, so they are a very strong pop to have a hold of. In addition to, actually working the factories and making them more efficient, you have to have people that actually, purchase the factories in the first place. If you're a government that allows that, there are capitalists, and capitalists are really nice. They basically invest into factories for you as the government. So like these projects here, they'll take it upon themselves to invest in things. And for instance, like if I was going to upgrade all this stuff, some of them will actually, the capitalists will actually do that for you. So that's really nice. They usually go ahead and build railroads too. I've seen that they actually like to prioritize railroads as opposed to building factories and upgrading factories. So just keep that in mind. If you if you have a lot of capitalists and you need a bunch of railroads, but you also need a lot of factories upgraded, go ahead and take care of the factories. Your capitalists will probably take care of the railroads. They are usually pretty good about doing that. And that's basically all you have to really worry about population-wise is those three guys, as far as industrial stuff is concerned directly. So, like, of course, all the other populations will kind of affect it depending on what's happening. Like, for instance, your laborers, those are the guys mining the coal that the factory actually uses. So if you build a factory and then all the laborers become craftsmen, then you might run into a situation where there's no one left to mine the coal. So what has been suggested, and there's kind of two thoughts on this, is if you have a province that has like a lot of coal, for instance, like Bourgogne, and then you have a province over here like the Rhone, which doesn't have any, that you probably want to build your factories in the Rhone as opposed to building them in Bourgogne, because then those laborers there, they'll still be mining the coal, and then these guys in the Rhone, I mean, wheat and stuff isn't really that important. So you can probably take away some farmers and laborers from doing that and helping make factories, while these laborers up here are just unhindered. The other flip side of that coin, and it's really like a very situational thing to decide this, is you actually get bonuses. So say I have a factory here in my country that builds with lumber. And if there's lumber that is being produced in that state, then you also get a 25% bonus from producing timber in that state. So, making paper would be a lot easier. That's kind of intuitive. However, what's not intuitive is the situation I described earlier, where you're not getting any timber because all of your laborers converted into craftsmen. So it kind of defeats the purpose of the 25% bonus. And I think, honestly, this 25% bonus here isn't really like a bonus to, make it better. I think it's kind of making up for the fact that your factory is not getting as much resources in the first place because of the laborers. So it's probably a wise decision to put factories in places where the RGO is non-important. For instance, like all this fruit and shit down here. Who cares about this? All right. I mean, if you're in a super industrial country, you care about the coal and the iron. Those are the big things. So if you have provinces like these guys over here, where just like coal, iron, you want to leave those for second. Develop your ones that are like cows and wheat first, and you'll see better results. And so that's basically, like I said, everything that population directly relates to how your industry is going to work. Of course, all the other pops, they kind of all work together. So like, your clergymen and stuff like that increase literacy, which increases clerks, which does, it's a whole weird like rotating system. And of course, I think this is why they dropped this sort of thing for other games, as far as like, Europe Universalis, just, it's just magic base tax numbers. There's no population. So it's a very hard thing to portray in a game. And the way that it kind of like goes back and forth and in between itself is kind of confusing. And that's why I wanted to take this video out to tell you how it works with relation to industry. So I hope this video helped you. And I hope that like when we put them all together at the end, you'll be able to have like a super awesome industrialized country, and you won't have to go through any of the weird pitfalls like, industrializing too early and stuff like that you can run into as a new player for Victoria 2. Anyways, thanks so much for watching. You guys are the best. I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you in the next one. Spray and pray out.